The National Park Service logo and title Great Basin National Park fades in, protecting the native Bonneville Cutthroat Trout.
These fellas traveled a good ways.
Johnson Lake, Great Basin National Park, 2020. A man with wide-brimmed hat rides a horse and leads another packed horse behind him on a rocky incline trail.
Horses and riders, all the way from north-central Nevada at the foot of the Ruby Mountains to this high country in the heart of Great Basin National Park. Today, they're finishing a haul of over 4 miles and some 2,000 vertical feet from the trailhead at the end of the Snake Creek Road to this alpine lake just south of Pyramid Peak. We're at over 10,000 feet in elevation here, the High Lonesome, right at treeline. The human cargo these horses and mules carry are near the end of their journey, but these riders and their equine partners, volunteers with the Backcountry Horsemen out of Elko, Nevada, carry additional travelers, aquatic wanderers whose own journey to reach this place spans millennia. And if the biologists of the National Park Service, the Nevada Department of Wildlife, and these volunteers have their way, that journey will continue for years to come.
The view pans out to more rocky terrain scattered with pine trees. Another rider trailing a horse accompanies the first rider with another person on foot. A strip of water comes into view.
Today, we welcome some new residents to Johnson Lake, high in the southern Snake Range of Great Basin National Park. The epic journey which brought them, eventually, to the roof of the Great Basin is truly astounding, but began, somewhat surprisingly, not far away at all.
Hendry's Canyon, Nevada, a strip of brush and trees lie at the bottom of a sparsely vegetated hill.
Hendry's Canyon, some 20 miles north of the park, does not exactly scream fisherman's paradise. Instead, a distinct feeling of sparseness carpets these beige foothills. Sage, rabbit brush, Great Basin rye, all tough customers, adapted to the extremes of high desert life. But the cinnamon hues of ponderosa pine expose a secret in the canyon's depths. There is water here.
A close-up of water lightly flowing through rocks.
Water which persists year-round and provides a minimal safe harbor for our story's resilient vagabonds. Refuge to a fish whose world, just a few thousand years ago, was a whole lot bigger. Hendry's Creek, on this day, just 2 days before the ride to Johnson Lake, has drawn in some additional guests as well.
A hole of water with rocks and sticks outlines the side of still water. A yellow rod with a metal circle on the end is moved through the water. A trout skitters across the bottom when the rod comes nearby.
Alright guys, everyone keep your eyes open, let me know when you're ready. Ready. Shocking. There's a toss right there.
Nice. Whoa.
Coming now. Alright, Kels. Good job.
There's the bucket.
A net catches the trout. The rod is moved through the shallow as the water moves over rocks. People and waders stand by holding nets.
Short timers only. These fish enthusiasts, pushing through the grasping thorns of wild rose and poison ivy, are here to conduct some unconventional fishing and to facilitate the next leg in the epic journey of the Bonneville Cutthroat Trout. John Reynolds is a fish biologist at Great Basin National Park. This is his project.
The camera pans from the water to the towering layered wall like rock face nearby.
It's a part of a larger project where we're trying to increase the number of conservation populations we have and increase the resilience in the face of climate change.
The rod is placed into a more still hole of water.
The Bonneville evolved in ancient Lake Bonneville, and about 15,000 years ago it started to dry up. So the fish adapted to live their entire life cycle into the mountain streams and the rivers that flowed into the lake. So Lake Bonneville no longer exists. Its remnant is Great Salt Lake. So they pretty much are just a river fish now, or a stream fish.
Hendry's is a Great Basin stream which still sustains a breeding population of Bonneville cutthroat trout.
The moving water is viewed from underwater with rocks and sediment lining the bottom. A still light gray spotted trout comes into view.
Historic stocking of non-native trout over the years, having eliminated or severely threatened Bonnevilles and other regional waterways. Streams such as this used to connect to massive Lake Bonneville,
Streams are winding through flat land with mountains outlining the horizon.
which thousands of years ago stretched from Snake Valley to the foot of the Wasatch Mountains, 100 miles to the east. Having fled the dying lake into these mountain hideaways,
A trout swims over the rocks in shallow water.
Bonnevilles now maintain a tenuous grip on a threatened habitat.
A wider stream with rushing water, trees fallen across the water, and trees on the banks are displayed.
Streams like Hendry's are prone to all manner of disasters which could wipe out any one of these small
A close-up
isolated
of water
populations.
running through rocks
Fire,
is displayed.
drought, and the warming water which accompanies global climate change all wield the threat of final annihilation to this resourceful species.
A close-up of a trout in still, shallow, rocky water.
So, John Reynolds and his crew intend to make a proactive strike.
Baker Lake, Great Basin National Park. Lightly moving water with rocks scattered across, runs next to a large rocky incline.
By moving some of these Hendry's Creek Bonneville to high-altitude Johnson Lake, and eventually Baker Lake, also within Great Basin National Park, the hope is that they will be able to enjoy the cold, oxygen-rich water they need further into the future than these small mercurial streams can ensure.
People and waders stand in a shallow creek with rods and nets trying to catch trout. A fish is caught.
But first, these folks will need to catch some. This is how you maximize your haul under time constraints in a small stream like Hendry's. These fish, of course, survive the process and are rarely injured in a permanent way.
The rod is placed in a small area of water surrounded by rocks. A small trout is caught in the net.
The rod John is brandishing introduces a mild electrical current into the water, leaving any nearby fish stunned and disoriented for a matter of seconds, enough time for a quick net to sweep them up. I won't try to sugarcoat the experience from the perspective of the Bonnevilles. The word hangover immediately comes to mind. But in addition to propping up a species into the future, during an extreme drought year like this, these very individuals would likely have died, frozen into solid ice, in landlocked puddles with the arrival of winter. Several were indeed grabbed out of tiny pools, no longer connected to the flowing stream.
A rod was used in a larger pool of water, and a larger trout was caught with the net.
At this point, urgency is of the essence. Every attempt is made to limit stress on the fish. They need to complete the journey, alive and exuberant, to their new high-altitude fortress in the Snake Range.
A 5-gallon bucket with multiple trout was dumped into a cooler that is closed and latched.
So it's quickly into an aerated cooler, a chauffeured trip out of the canyon, and into a specialized truck provided by the Nevada Department of Wildlife, where they will be hauled along some 40 miles of highways and dirt road to the Johnson Lake Trailhead in Great Basin National Park.
The fish are gathered with a net from the cooler and placed into a larger white tank on the back of a truck.
After spending the night in the water of Snake Creek, the Bonnevilles, in the morning, will be loaded back into coolers and lashed to pack animals for their pilgrimage into the high country.
A donkey is waiting on a rocky trail.
For maybe 10,000 years, these Bonnevilles have called this stark, lonely canyon their home.
A sparsely vegetated, rocky canyon with trees and shrubbery grow at the bottom of the steep slopes.
Despite the odds and the loss of massive Lake Bonneville, they were able to carry on way out here, largely beyond our knowledge. But today, our influence reaches every remote place, and while a lively population of fish is left behind to continue their legacy, a few important individuals will now hopefully prove a bulwark against extinction in a rapidly changing world.
I'm Jonathan Reynolds, and I'm the fish biologist at Great Basin National Park.
Jonathan is wearing a ranger uniform, badge, and sunglasses, and is standing on the edge of the lake talking to the camera.
Today was a good day. We actually got to introduce 55 Bonneville Cutthroat Trout into the lake.
Trout are released into still lake water from a net.
We're trying to increase the resilience in the face of climate change.
Jonathan is standing near the lake talking to the camera.
And it seems that there's becoming more drought, more wildfires, and as the temperature warms in the air, the water temperatures of the streams will also warm. We're at a higher elevation. This is the area in the park that gets the most precipitation. So we're hoping that with the higher elevation, the water won't get warm as quickly, and because there's the most precipitation up here, they won't be as affected by drought. And then with wildfire, it is a little more sparse up here, sparsely vegetated, so wildfires don't usually become as catastrophic at this elevation. So hopefully this lake will be protected from, even if there is a local forest fire, hopefully this population will still do just fine.
The screen fades to black. Special thanks, Backcountry Horsemen of Nevada, Great Basin Fisheries Staff, Nevada Department of Wildlife. Filming and narration, Robert Reinhardt. Editing, Charles Reed, Nancy Mantelli, Mary Sullivan. Producer, Jonathan Reynolds. National Park Service logo, Great Basin National Park. The screen fades to black.